On this episode of Cox Connections, strategically located at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay, this freedom fort was witness to the beginning and the end of slavery in the United States. Learn about the newest national park dedicated to honoring the bravery of the Contraband Decision right here in Hampton Roads. The word Tuskegee Airmen refers to all those involved in the so-called Tuskegee Experience, the Army Air Corps program to train African Americans to fly and maintain combat aircraft. Learn what it was like to be a part of this historic group of extraordinary men and women. We'll also take a look at the state of Black America with a frank discussion on how far African Americans have come in regards to religion, education, and politics here in Hampton Roads. Stay tuned. Cox Connections is next. Hello and welcome to Cox Connections. I'm your host, Gary McCullum, Senior Vice President and General Manager for Cox, Virginia. Fort Monroe National Monument in Hampton, Virginia is one of America's newest national parks. The 565-acre peninsula is a place of astounding beauty and inspiration that saw critical events that led to both the beginning of slavery in England's American colonies and the end of slavery in the United States. Here to talk to us about the historical Contraband Decision is Robin Reed, Director of the Casemate Museum on Fort Monroe, and Yola Dance, Chief of Visitors Services for Fort Monroe. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank
Nice
you
to
for
be
having
here.
us.
You know, let me start, and either of you can jump in, but what is Fort Monroe and what is its historical significance?
Well, Fort Monroe has so many layers of history that are important on both a local and national level. It was an active military base until 2011. Through a BRAC closure, the military left and the Commonwealth of Virginia began managing and operating Fort Monroe. The National Park Service joined the management team in 2011 through presidential proclamation acknowledging the importance of colonialization, the Civil War, and also the Contraband Decision.
Let's talk a little bit about the Contraband Decision. Some of our viewers may not know exactly what that decision was and how important it is in not just African American history, but in American history.
Well, the Contraband Decision took place in 1861, May, on the eve of May 23rd. Three men actually escaped from the Confederacy. These men were enslaved in Virginia and arrived at Fort Monroe and asked to remain there. On the morning of the 24th of May, General Benjamin Butler actually allowed these men refuge at Fort Monroe. He determined that they were being used against the Union and that that Virginia had seceded from the Union and so was no longer a part of the United States. And these men could be retained as contraband of war. So he actually used the Confederate argument that the men were property to assist them in finding their own freedom.
And as a result of that decision of those three, over the coming weeks and months, there were thousands.
Exactly. The historic record shows that by July of 1861, 900 freedom seekers were at Fort Monroe. And by the end of the Civil War, over 10,000 freedom seekers found their way to Fort Monroe. In
the presidential proclamation that created it, the Fort Monroe National Monument was referred to as the Ark of Slavery. Elaborate on what they were referring to, Robin.
The significance of the Contraband Decision is that it sets up a variety of different things. The Emancipation Proclamation, for one thing. It's the first departure by any members of the United States government to leave the idea of the Fugitive Slave Act, which requested that the slaves be returned to their rightful owners. So this was a whole new ballgame, and one could say from the Emancipation Proclamation, we have the 13th Amendment all the way up through the Civil Rights Act of the 60s and to our first elected African-American president.
What are some of the ways that Fort Monroe is highlighting this important period of history?
Well, I would say one of the most important ways that we're doing this is through the preservation of the historic structures and the landscape by offering tours and continuing the Casemate Museum, but also through our partnerships. We have strong partnerships with the Contraband Historical Society, with Hampton University and the Hampton University Museum, and with the City of Hampton through the Hampton History Museum. What we've been able to do is continue to offer special programming. For example, during the month of May, we offer commemorative events. We also have our Junior Ranger program where young people are able to earn a badge and a certificate. So there are lots of ways that we are engaging the public and the community of historians at Fort Monroe.
And so you mentioned the Junior Ranger program. Tell us a little bit more about that.
It's available to families daily. You're able to visit the Casemate Museum. You pick up a booklet. During your visit, you explore the landscape and the museum, and you answer a series of questions and complete activities. You're able to earn a badge and the certificate once you've completed these activities.
You know, I just think about, you mentioned General Butler and that decision, and you think about the repercussions, the consequence of that decision, and how if he had made another decision, what would have happened? And it's just an amazing story.
I'm glad that you say that because General Butler actually made a different decision just a few weeks prior. He was actually signed to a fort in Maryland, and individuals arrived there and asked the same question: can we remain here? Can we have assistance? And they were returned. They were sent back. One distinction was that Virginia had seceded from the Union. General Butler was a lawyer, and he actually understood that that was very significant in his ability to allow these men to remain and not be forced to return them.
And Maryland was in the Union, Virginia was not, and this will set the precedent for the Emancipation Proclamation, which only frees slaves in those states that are in rebellion against the United States.
Absolutely.
What an incredible story. We have less than a minute left. What haven't we said that viewers should know about Fort Monroe?
Come see us at the Casemate Museum. We talk about Black history and women's history throughout the year. We like to think that every month is History Month at Fort Monroe and the Casemate Museum, and we'll be glad to teach you some things.
Well, Robin, Yola, thank you both for what you're doing, keeping our history alive. Thank you very much for being here today. Coming up, learning about an organization that is helping to celebrate some of the most remarkable men and women to ever serve in this country's military. Stay tuned for more Cox Connections.